So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Thank you, Brother Emeritus, and to Secretary General, Chair of the Women's Branch, our Vice Chairs, all the officers. Men's Branch Chair is not here.
I'm representing him until he arrives.
Okay. Yeah. You all ready to be in Long Island?
We are prepared, sir.
They've even put together a package this year, right? $649.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. So, we go down to Long Island for the service for H.M. Taylor. And then this year we're having a banquet to honor Mario Sims, who is one of our stalwart counselors from North Long Island. And the banquet is going to be at Stella Maris Inn on the evening of the 13th, I think that is. 13th? The evening of the 13th. So they put together this package which includes the round-trip airfare, transportation, all the rest of it. If you're interested, you can see him. And the service for H.M. Taylor takes place on the evening of the 12th in the Clarencetown Cemetery, where he's buried. So again, if you're interested in that. So thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out tonight. Couple of things. I wanted to thank Senator Duncan for a visit which took place, I guess that was last week. I lose track of the time and place. But he brought a group of adolescent boys in an organization which he calls Next Gen, which he is the head of. And they came to visit the foreign ministry just to have some idea about what the foreign ministry does. And apart from them being individually impressive and the whole program being impressive, there was this video which was put out afterwards, and all the comms people who work for me were trying to find out, well, who is your comms person, because they want to copy what was done, because it was really quite a superior product.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason I say that, because one of the most important points that we have to address now, and this is a complaint which comes all the time, is the question of communication strategy. Those of you who, I think it was in today's Guardian, there was an editorial in today's Guardian, which essentially was making an analysis of where the Progressive Liberal Party is in this midterm. And their assessment was, I forget what the exact headline was, but their assessment was that we're not at the point where the country believes it needs to ditch the PLP. So that's what you call damning you with faint praise. But the fact is, what they're saying is that the country is still best governed by the Progressive Liberal Party. And what they're saying, again, from their point of view, is they, or people, are always searching around for a reason to choose the other side. And so far, they haven't found a reason to do so. So that means that the party is doing something right when people who are essentially, well, they're not neutral, but they're not your best friend, is saying to you that thus far, there's no reason to change the PLP. And so it puts additional responsibility on us to so conduct our affairs that remains the proposition up to the date of the general election, which is there's no reason to change from PLP to F&M.
That's true.
And this is so in the face of their convention, which just took place, the one-day convention. This is so in the face of what looks like a lot of frenetic energy and activity on the other side. I guess Clay and those are not here tonight because they're holding their joint meeting at Workers' House in Eleuthera to try and deal with this water situation, which is a vexing problem of long standing. And I know that many people in the country keep saying that you can't keep blaming what happened before, but the point is, the past is prologue. And you don't get to the present unless you understand what happened in the past. And one of the things I pointed out is that, as I understand it, I've not seen the agreement myself, but this company that runs the water in Eleuthera promised that after the last issue of a long default of without water, that they would correct some of the problems which have been occurring chronically. And that is, they would put people in Eleuthera who could fix the equipment. Secondly, they would put stores of material so that they don't have to be sending overseas or into Nassau for parts to fix things when they go wrong. And I think thirdly also to put backup power, because that's one of the reasons why there's often a default in the water, because when the power goes down, the pumps don't operate, and on and on and on. So despite those promises, the promises have not been kept. And I understand, again, and I'm advised, I have to say it that way, that the agreement is for something like 20 years. And what happens in many of these agreements is they put what's called a poison pill, which makes it difficult for you to get out of the agreement. So that's really what the problem is. And if you see Clay Sweeting's statement, he said in his statement that he's now prepared to do whatever is necessary to fix the problem. Because lawyers understand that often these matters of contract, there's a lawyer right there, she's nodding judiciously, so she'll correct me if I get it wrong. Often a breach of contract is really just the measure of damages. So I'll give you a couple of other examples that the F&M did with these agreements. One was the sale of BTC. I remember BTC was sold for $210 million. And they said that this money was going to be used to lower the deficit and to pay off the national debt. Well, they forgot to tell us that they left $50 million in cash in the company. So you buy a company for $210 million, but you leave them $50 million of cash in it. So that takes you, what, down to 160, right? So the price is really 160. And then they forgot to tell us that they put also the responsibility of paying the pensions, which at that point amounted to $150 million, on the Bahamian government. So you sold the company, you left $50 million in cash, and you took on liabilities of $150 million. So how much that means you sold the company for $10 million on the face of it. That's the F&M. And then, to prevent the PLP from reversing the agreement, they said that if you reverse the agreement, you had to pay the company, the telephone company that bought it, $100 million as a penalty. Right. So that's what we mean by a poison pill. Similarly, the Arawak port, which is the port where all the food and everything comes, right? Remember, at the time, Perry Christie's government was proposing to build a new port on the southern end of the island. It should have been a brand new port. Ingram comes along with the change of election and decides that no, the port is not going to go out south, that they're going to give the port to 18 families, and I suppose you could guess the names of the families and the shareholders who end up getting this port, this Arawak port. And again, I think they said that you could not put another port, the government could not put another port within 40 miles of New Providence, which means that that even extends to North Andros. So you can't have another port. Now, so what I mean by measure of damages is there's a man named Edward St. George. And there was a dispute which arose between the Bahamas government and the Grand Bahama Port Authority about some land which accreted by natural tidal action outside of Xanadu. Do you know where Xanadu is in Freeport? So I think it was about 1.5 miles of beach that just accreted as a result of natural tidal action. And there was an argument between the government and themselves about who actually owned this land. The Port Authority said it was theirs. The government said, no, it's not yours because when the port agreement was signed in 1955, the land didn't exist, so that means that the new land is outside the port area. And what that meant is it was a tax issue, because if it belonged to the port and it was outside the port area, then the port would have to pay taxes on the land which the government had. So he was a bit upset, and he's talking to me in one of the hotels out here, and he said, you know, I told my lawyer, L.B. Johnson, that I had a good mind, just take a tractor and push the damn beach right into the sea and then tell them sue me for damages. Okay? So that's what I mean, that this becomes a matter of damages. And sometimes it seems to me you have to take these kinds of actions in the national interest. And remember, even in the case of the Grand Bahama Port Authority today, I mean, ultimately, the government has the legislative ability and power, if they want, to acquire the shares of the Grand Bahama Port Authority. The Constitution says under Article 27 that you can publicly acquire any property for a public purpose once you compensate the owners of the property for what you acquire. So that's the point. I think it sounds to me that that's the point at which Clay Sweeting is with regard to this water problem in Eleuthera, because it not only affects South and Central Eleuthera, which, according to the press, was out of water for 9 days. 9 days. But Harbor Island, which is one of the most high-powered tourism centers, is also affected by this as well. And this has been going on too long. So that's what I mean by sometimes you just have to take action to assert the government's authority. And sometimes even saying it, you may not intend to do it, sometimes even saying it accomplishes it. You know, Arthur Hanna, when he was the minister, the deputy prime minister, was telling me in 1967 there was a strike shortly after the PLP came to power. The Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union had a strike which affected Paradise Island. And Cosby came to him and said, look, if this government doesn't do something to end this strike, we're going to shut the hotel down. And he told them, well, okay, shut it down then. They didn't shut it down. So sometimes, you know, iron has to meet iron. And the most important thing is, just like the government in Belize decided in Belize to renationalize the telephone company because the situation was such that the services were deteriorating so much, and no matter how you talk to the company, they just didn't do anything to improve the services. I'm not sure we're at that point here yet, but I mean, the service of the telecommunications infrastructure in this country is just going downhill, downhill, downhill. We keep talking to them. They do nothing. They keep laying off the people. So the company is a shell of what it was. The country, I was just in London supporting the Attorney General and the Minister for Economic Affairs in a program put on by the Bahamas Financial Services Board to promote the financial services sector. And one of the things they were promoting was the fact that we have this sector which on digital assets. Okay, so this is a big thing which is the Bahamas government is marketing into overseas as the Bahamas being a place where you can come and set up to market your own digital assets. But one of the things they were fascinated about was the sand dollar, which is the thing that John Roll is pushing, and how successful that's been. But you know, I was saying to them who were talking to me off the side that you can't sell a sand dollar if the internet isn't working. Exactly. The internet got to work. So that's one of the things that, again, I'm not I'm against a cashless society, but I'm not against choices for people. So those who want to go digital, they can go digital. That's their business, right? And in the UK, they've now actually passed laws which say that communities have to be served in a certain density with ATM machines by the banks so that people have access to cash at all times. Now, I read today when I got back that there are some solutions which are coming to this issue, because one of the communities that's been complaining a lot has been North Andros, which has been unbanked now for almost 2 years. So they're saying now that Suncash has now got an agreement with Visa, with I think the two things are Cirrus and A Plus, is that? What's the other one? A Plus and Cyrus, yeah. So now you can use their ATM machines if you have a Visa or a MasterCard. You can use it at Suncash. So this is what is happening. There's also a private group that is working on something called agency banking, which I believe the Scotiabank is going to take the lead on, to allow these agencies to set up shop, brick and mortar shops in the various islands, so that you'd be able to make payments, withdrawals, applications. They won't be able to process the credit, but at least they can take the information and forward on to the banks. And they're saying that there may be, in September, there'll be the first of these pilot projects. Those are some of the things which are bubbling under the surface, which we have to work on. Now, what I also want to congratulate our supporters for is the turnout at the regional meeting which took place. And what is this about? This is about trying to make sure that the party does not separate from its base. The party does not separate from its base. And this is because you can get into a situation where a lot of macro activity is going on, and it looks great and it looks fine from a macro level. But at the micro level, that is the relationship between party and member, there's a disconnect. And so one of the reasons you want to have these public meetings is that you actually go to the source and hear for yourself, get an opportunity to hear for yourself what people are saying, what they're thinking, what they're doing, so that you don't get too far ahead of where the population is. And what we were heartened by, the fact is, the enthusiastic support of people who came out that night. So full room. So I want to thank those who helped to organize that, and there are going to be more of them coming. So stand by. And I was saying in another place that one of the reasons why do you have, when we're in opposition, I used to always say this, there's a reason why the political party has branch meetings. Because I often argue, political party and the church are in the same business, right? We're in the business of selling the future. Okay. So what we say is this, is that one of the reasons you try to come together every month in a branch meeting, one of the reasons you try to have these regular regional meetings, is the same reason the church gets you in church on Sunday. Because every time you get together, what do? You see your friends, you get to sing the same songs, and you get to listen to the gospel, and then you can go away afterwards and spread the gospel. So that's the business that we're in. And so there'll be more of that happening in the future. Thank you. Now, I just want to mention one final thing before I welcome all of our parliamentary members here tonight. There was a voice note which was going around from one of our own members, one of our diplomats. And as a result of it, I had a meeting with them, and I want to make this clear, that diplomats who serve overseas are agents of the government. Okay? Right. So I made it clear that when you have a disagreement which becomes public between yourself and the government, there's only one course of action to follow. Okay? Right. So that point's been made. Secondly, in my view, I've tried since coming to office to ensure that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs stays out of the news. I don't want nothing to do with the foreign ministry in the news, except, you know, you go on there, you get your passport, and you got it on time. Someone got locked up in the States, the consular office went, picked the person up, and they're fine. Other than that, I don't hear nothing about the foreign ministry, right? And that's because the foreign ministry should not become a distraction to the central work of the government, which is to keep moving forward. So I've asked all of those who service overseas that they have a responsibility to so manage these human resources issues in such a way that they do not percolate up to the top. And that is a serious responsibility on behalf of diplomats, not to have anything distract from the central mission of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And when you get to the point where it does, again, there's only one solution to the problem. So I want to, without calling any names, I want to make that quite clear. That's a very strict position with regard to me and that matter. Okay?
Keep the 20, the 10s, and the 50 rolling, please.
I forgot where I was. I was probably in at the fresh market in Yamakoro. Yeah. So tonight, in addition to thanking all of you for coming, let me acknowledge those members of Parliament and who are here tonight, starting with Keith Bell. Let's see if Michael Darville could beat that. And Mr. Michael Darville, Dr. Michael Darville. All right, Senator Ronnie Duncan. Parliamentary Secretary Bacchus Rowe. Minister of Transport and Energy. And Pastor Leroy Major, MP. Anyone else who's not sitting up front? That's everybody who's here. Okay. So the next thing I see on the agenda, Alex, it's you're up. Yep. Oh, sorry, Senator Randy Rowe. There we go. So I think that's everybody. Everyone? Okay, so just to remember, those of you interested in going to Long Island, the event is the evening of the 12th of July, and then the banquet is on the evening of the 13th. Thank you very much. And PLP? PLP? PLP. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I heard all those, the chairman was giving details on the bar decision.